The WW3 ration recipe that fed entire units with no fire, no cooking. The harsh truth about staying alive in war. It wasn't delicious, it wasn't comforting, and it definitely wasn't soft, but it kept men breathing. During World War II, when soldiers were stranded behind enemy lines or marching for days without a single cooked meal, one thing kept them alive. A hard, compact food brick that could last for months and be eaten cold. No fire, no kitchen, just sheer survival. It was the military's way of turning nutrition into a weapon. Soldiers joked it could break teeth. Commanders praised it for saving lives. It was a creation born out of necessity, and its story proves that sometimes survival depends on what you can eat straight from your pocket. Why armies needed food that didn't need cooking. In war, time and mobility are everything. Fires reveal positions. Cooking takes time. And on the front lines of Europe, Africa and the Pacific, troops were often cut off from supply lines for days. The United States Army, like every other military power of the era, needed food that could move with the men. Food that wouldn't spoil, melt, or depend on fuel. The solution was the emergency ration brick, a small, dense block of calories designed to keep soldiers alive when nothing else could. It wasn't designed for pleasure or even comfort. It was engineered purely for survival. This was the food you ate when things went wrong. The birth of the D-Ration Bar. Enter the United States Army's D-Ration Bar, one of the most fascinating examples of wartime ingenuity. In 1937, the Army approached the Hershey Chocolate Company with a challenge that was equal parts scientific and cruel. The bar had to deliver high energy, stay solid in tropical heat, and last indefinitely without refrigeration. It also needed to taste so bland that soldiers wouldn't eat it unless they absolutely had to. That last detail wasn't a joke. It was an intentional design choice to make sure men saved it for emergencies. Hershey's chemist Samuel Hinkle took up the task, and the result was a chocolate-coloured brick that could literally survive a battlefield. What was inside the survival brick? The D-Ration Bar was made from just a few ingredients: sugar, oat flour, cocoa powder, and a small amount of cocoa fat. No milk, no luxury ingredients, no frills. It was 4 ounces of pure, compressed calories, about 600 in total, roughly the same as a small meal. It was so dense that soldiers sometimes had to shave it with a knife or crumble it into hot water to make a drinkable paste. But when you were starving in a foxhole or trekking through enemy territory, it was the best-tasting bad food you could imagine. It didn't melt in desert heat, didn't freeze solid in the Ardennes winter, and could be stored for months without spoiling. Feeding entire units without a single flame. The brilliance of these ration bricks wasn't in their taste. It was in how they transformed logistics. With them, entire units could operate for days without needing a stove, a pot, or even a fire. The rations were handed out in packs that could feed a man for 3 days when nothing else was available. Multiply that by hundreds of soldiers, and you had an army that could keep moving, fighting, and surviving without pausing for a cooked meal. That kind of independence was priceless. It meant fewer supply convoys, less risk of detection, and a fighting force that could operate deep behind enemy lines. The flavour soldiers loved to hate. If you ask any World War II veteran about the D-Ration Bar, you'll probably get a grimace. Many compared it to sweetened sand, or said it tasted like cocoa-flavoured cardboard. But in fairness, that was the point. Hershey designed it to be edible, not enjoyable. It was the kind of food you didn't want to eat unless you had to, which meant soldiers were less likely to waste it when regular rations were available. Yet when real hunger hit, that same bar suddenly became precious. For many troops, it was the last taste of home in a world filled with mud, smoke, and uncertainty. Other nations had their own no-cook survival foods too. The United States wasn't alone in this approach, you know. The British, for instance, had what they called their iron ration. It was a compact kit including hard biscuits, a bit of chocolate, and preserved meat, meant to be eaten cold, just like that. Meanwhile, German troops carried something called Erbswurst, which was a dried pea sausage. It could be eaten as is, or, if you had the chance, turned into soup with some hot water. Every major army really had its own version of a no-cook, long-lasting meal. The idea was pretty universal: compress food into the smallest, toughest, most reliable form possible. It wasn't about taste, no sir, it was about endurance. Why the ration brick still matters today. What's fascinating is how this wartime invention quietly shaped the modern survival industry. The same principles behind the D-Ration Bar are found in today's emergency food bars and humanitarian rations. High calories, low moisture, long shelf life, and no preparation needed. That's the formula. Even modern preppers and hikers use similar recipes. You can make your own version at home using simple ingredients: flour or oats for carbs, sugar or honey for quick energy, and oil or cocoa butter for fat. Press it tightly, bake or dehydrate it to remove moisture, and wrap it well. You'll have a cheap, durable food brick that can last months, perfect for emergencies or survival kits. The real legacy of the no-cook ration. The D-Ration Bar may have been tough to chew, but it was tougher than war itself. It represented human ingenuity under pressure, the ability to turn a handful of cheap ingredients into a portable lifeline. It wasn't just food, it was freedom in edible form. With it, soldiers could keep moving without relying on supply lines or open fires. It gave them a chance to survive when the world was burning around them. And in that sense, it's one of the unsung heroes of World War II. A little brown bar that didn't just feed soldiers, but helped fuel victory. Final thoughts. The next time you grab an energy bar or pack a survival kit, remember that it all started with a brutal war and a chocolate bar designed to taste like desperation. The one-tree ration brick was more than a meal. It was a lifeline for men who had nothing else. And while its flavour might not win awards, its story deserves to be remembered as a triumph of necessity over comfort. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden piece of wartime history, make sure to subscribe to The Forgotten War Fronts and share this story with others. Because some of the greatest victories in history weren't won with bullets. They were won with the will to survive, one cold bite at a time. Super, The Forgotten War Fronts. On-screen text. Watermark text displayed on screen.